we've got enough problems and enough challenges as people of color, as women of color. I think that we need to be resources for one another and build that generational wealth, build that generational knowledge and pass it down because, we are only as good as the collective. That's how we've always learned. We have always learned by teaching other people, whether from the Underground Railroad or teaching other slaves how to read or whatever. The masses know that we are good at everything that we do. Welcome to Justice Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Nakima Levy Armstrong, and I am so excited to bring to you today's guest, Lisa Bonner, Esquire. And when I say the Esquire, that means that she is an attorney. She is an entertainment lawyer as well as an intellectual property attorney. So, Lisa, for folks who have never heard of an intellectual property attorney, an entertainment lawyer, tell us what you do. Tell us who you are and kick it off. Okay, well, thanks for having me, Nakima. Glad to be here. An intellectual property lawyer is someone who deals with just that, your intellectual property, that which is up in your head, and we manifest that and put it into a tangible form of expression, meaning words, lyrics, music, art, or what have you. So I work primarily in the film and television space and work with a lot of studios and production companies and setting up contracts and bringing a lot of the things that you see to life on the big and small screen. And I also work with music artists. And I used to work a lot more with music artists, but I do now a lot of the music for studio work as well. So I'm at a point where I have created the life that I have wanted in terms of being a lawyer. So I have streamlined that process, and I have a lot more. My clients are more on the corporate and studio side, but I do work with artists and producers. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's kind of the highlights of my job. How did you get into the field? Because, I'm an attorney as well, and I don't see as many Black women lawyers who are focusing on intellectual property. I see some here and there in the entertainment industry, but it's still rare. Like, you're a unicorn. So how did you get into the field? Is this something that you've always wanted to do, or was it by happenstance? When I graduated from law school, I went to NYU, and at the last minute, I decided to move back to California. And so I was working at a small to medium-sized firm. And being in California at that time, it was a lot of, I was working in litigation, and I was working with the LAUSD, the Los Angeles Unified School District was probably our largest client, and doing a lot of trial work. And I really quickly realized that I did not like the adversarial nature of of litigation. I did not like the hard deadlines with litigation, but you're a baby lawyer and, you take what you can get. But being, young and in Los Angeles means being out and about, right? So it would be, as I would go out, hey, what do you do? I'm a lawyer. So people don't know whether you're a litigator, whatever it is. They hear you're a lawyer and you're in LA. Oh, I've got this management contract. I've got this contract. I've got that contract. And so it was really more of, can you do this? And at the time, I wasn't, versed in it, but I really realized after a while, what people kept asking me, I was leaving a lot of money on the table if I didn't do it. So I talked to the head attorney at the time, who was my boss, and I asked him. He was in entertainment years before that, and then he went the other way, right? He went into litigation from there. And I asked him. I said, I'm getting a lot of requests, and do you think this is something that I can do or you could help me with? And basically, he had these books that are at the treatise called Entertainment Law Contracts, and there were about 9 volumes of books this thick. And, basically after work, long hours, I was often working, 10 to 12 hours a day in litigation, and I would stay after work and really, I had older contracts and just trying to deconstruct them. And I took the books and I basically taught myself a lot.
of how to do it. And he would, I asked him questions, and then I got my first contract, which was a management contract, and I kind of went from there. And then I decided that I was ready to quit my job, and someone that I was studying for the bar with asked me if I wanted to come over and start with a very nascent firm at I guess it was a production company, and he asked me if I wanted to start, and by that time I had enough experience that I knew what I was doing to a degree. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it was a production company, a start of what we now are calling, streaming media, right? And that was kind of it.
That's
That's
amazing. It sounds like your destiny was calling you in a different direction after you had that initial experience as a litigator.
Yeah, I just, I've never been the struggle girl, right? I feel like life can be hard enough, and we spend enough time at our job. And I think it's really important that we enjoy what we're doing. And I quickly learned, which is why when I went back to LA, I knew that I didn't want to work at a big firm, right? NYU had these massive firms that would come on campus to recruit. And I didn't want to do that because I worked after undergrad. I worked at Lehman Brothers, which was huge, and I was working these insane hours. And by this time, after I'd been working for maybe 3 or 4 years and went back to law school, I was like, I don't want to do that again, right? I've been there. I've worked the 100-hour work weeks, and I've been the peon, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I really was very clear about what I wanted and what I wanted my life to look like. And so I took a job at a smaller firm, which, allowed me to kind of create the life that I want, and was very clear in that. And once I realized, I remember one time I had a trip planned that I was going to Costa Rica, and it got derailed because we had a trial. And I was like, you know what? Get out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. So
Want to live your best
really,
life.
right, for various reasons. And that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. I was like, I'm out of here. So I decided at that point that I was cool with it. And I just started creating the life that I wanted, and the rest is kind of history.
I love that. I love that you are conscious
Yeah.
about what you didn't like and what you did like, and
Yeah.
also thinking about the kind of life that you want to live. Because
Yeah.
so often we just let life happen to us, or we feel like because we started out a certain way that we're stuck in that situation. But
Yeah.
your story is an example of how you made a conscious decision to make
Yes.
a paradigm shift in your
Mhm.
own life, your surroundings. I'm sure your network went to a
Yep.
whole other level once you made the decision to go in this direction.
Yeah, like I said, we spend so much time at our job, and I felt like it was something that, if we're going to spend so much time there and doing this work and making a living, it's called making a living, right? And you have to enjoy what you're doing. So, I'm the baby I have two older brothers, so I've always had to speak up for myself, right? And so, really, and I don't want to do what I don't want to do. But I knew
Right.
I had to I knew that there was a way, to do it in a way that I felt like it was gonna be beneficial for me. And
Mhm.
yeah, I took that leap of faith.
I'm glad you took that leap of faith. I mean, it sounds like you're living your best life and you're able to help people and
Yeah.
you're able to be the boss of your own life, right?
Yes.
Because we know that there's all kinds of barriers, systemic issues. People will
Mhm.
try to undermine, our intellect and what we
Mhm.
bring to the table. But it sounds like you just grab the bull by the horns and you're like, look, I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
smart. I'm
Yep.
determined and I'm ready. I know I can do this. So I'm proud of you and I'm excited that you
Thank
decided to go in that direction.
Yeah. I feel as though, I feel it's really important to know what it is that brings us joy and how to define that. And I feel as though it's really important for us to vocalize and be clear about that. And I also know what my limitations are. Like I knew I'm bad at math, right? So I knew that going to business school to get an MBA was going to be a real challenge for me, right? Because I didn't want to take statistics and accounting, and that stuff I don't like that. So I was like, that's how I went to law school. I was like, damn, let me see, what can I do? How can I get a higher education and really not have to take these classes, right? And I felt like a law degree would give me the ability and the tools to do whatever it was that I wanted it to do. Like at first I was like, and so I didn't really go to law school really with the intent on being a lawyer. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I had to do something. And I
Mhm.
knew that, climbing up the financial corporate ladder was something that, although the money was great, it wasn't going to yield me the life that I wanted in terms of the joy. And
Mhm.
so I felt like going to law school would have the same effect, right? You can do really whatever you want with a law degree. A lot of people go and they don't practice. And that was kind of me for the time. I was like, I probably won't practice. But then when I started practicing, I really did enjoy it.
Mhm.
So I think it's important for us to keep our finger on the pulse of what it is that be honest about, what it is that you want to do. Like as much as I could say, hey, I want to be a singer, I want to be on stage, I want to be a doctor. That's not where my strengths lie. But I knew that I could write. I'm a really good writer. I know that I can reason. I know that I have an analytical mind. So I kind of, backed into that and made it work for me. And so, you know, really focusing in on and honing on what you have and sharpening those skills. Because there's more than one way to skin a cat,
Right.
you know? Yeah, that's kinda how I got into this, went to law school essentially. Yeah.
Now, there are some people who are watching who are entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
How important is it for entrepreneurs and creatives to protect their intellectual property?
Well, I think that it's really important, right? Now, in terms of if you are going to write a book, if you're gonna write music, if you're gonna write a song, if you're going to create anything that is coming from here and you are putting it into a tangible mode of expression, that is your social currency, right? And so it's different whether, if you're doing hair or you're doing makeup or, something to that effect where it's in an entrepreneur is not dealing with intellectual property. But if you are an entrepreneur who is dealing with intellectual property, the most important thing for you to do is be able to protect that because other than that someone can encroach on that intellectual property that you have that's making money for you and monetize that in a way, and if you don't have it protected to the extent that you need it protected, it's A, harder to enforce, and then B, in terms of collecting the money for the breach is much more difficult.
Mhm. Now, we see celebrities trademarking their babies' names, sometimes before their baby's even born. We know that networks and record companies have their projects protected before releasing it to the general public. With the growing exposure of the internet and the way that content is being shared quite rapidly on social platforms, when should non-celebrities, right? The folks who don't really have it like that, but have a dream, have a vision, have a brilliant idea, when should they protect their ideas and their projects? Like what step would you
Um, you know, at one point that you are sharing it with the public, right? Because the copyright and trademark laws protect the right of first use, right? If I'm creating something, I have the ability to say when it goes out and how to monetize it. So, there's what's called, it used to be called a poor man's copyright, right? You just mail it to yourself and it's copyright. Well, actually, if you write something down in your journal right here, or in your notebook, that is actually copywritten right there. Trademarking doesn't necessarily work the same way. It's copywritten. There's a difference in copyrights and trademarks because in copyrights deal with architecture. They deal with words, they deal with scripts, they deal with music and things like that. So you just by writing it down or recording it, that there's a copyright. But the benefit of registering a copyright with the Copyright Office is that if someone encroaches on your copyright, then you have the ability to collect greater damages, right? You want to register those works with the Copyright Office. And trademarking is different, because there are different steps. You actually have to, the trademarking is protecting this one word or phrase or slogan in that particular class in order to avoid the likelihood of confusion in the mind of the consumer, right? So you look at Delta Airlines and you look at Delta faucets, for instance. How can those two have the same name that's registered? Dove chocolates and Dove, soap. How can those two coexist? Because they are trademarked in different classes. And so if you just have an idea, you can't copyright an idea, you can't trademark an idea. But if you have an idea that's, come down with a trademark and you're trying to protect your name, right? You want to trademark your name, but you haven't used it in commerce yet, that you cannot get a registered trademark for that, but you can go and register what is called an intent to use with the mark office. Trademarking is often a race to first use and first registration. And so even though you may not have had the ability to exploit it in commerce, but once you're thinking about it, then you should really, before you go out and spend all this money, invest in what is called an intent to use, to make sure that it's like kind of like squatters' rights, that while you're getting your act together, while you're getting whatever it is that you're trying to trademark together, you can register the intent to use with the trademark office, and then it allows you the ability and time while it is maturing. And you can then, at that point, once it matures and you've used it in commerce, you can go back to the trademark office and you say, hey, look, I want to register this, these cups with this word, and this merchandise, and these jackets and hoodies with this phrase on it. And I have now since gone ahead and used it. But the trademark office is very clear about what it is, and you can, it's hang tags, it's not flyers, it's billboards, it's things to show the public that you are actually selling that in commerce. So it depends, but a copyright is very different, right? And so once copyright is it's much more straightforward and much less expensive. I'll give you an example. I was traveling to Rio I guess it was last week, and I had taken this video of, Christ the Redeemer statue. It's that big statue that's standing out like this.
Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, it's Rio de Janeiro. And Christ the Redeemer statue is on this hill, and it stands at the top. It's a World Heritage Site. It was 10 of us. We went at the sunrise to watch the sunrise over Rio at the Corcovado statue. It was amazing. Anytime you go to a World Heritage Site, it's overrun with tourists, but we had 2 hours there. It was just by ourselves, right? And then the statue got struck by lightning. So I had posted all this stuff on my Instagram, because it was only us. It was only like 10 people there, and I got all these like dope pictures and stuff, and I captured all this video. And so I posted it on my Instagram, which is Lisa Bonner, by the way. And then somebody had caught taking a picture of, the statue getting struck. And I had gotten all these texts and like all these messages about what happened, this, and the other thing. And is, Jesus, the statue kind of, what happened? So I went on my Instagram the next day and I posted all this video and where nobody is in the picture. Nobody is in the picture. And you just don't have that opportunity to get these kind of shots. And so everybody was reposting it, and the city of Rio de Janeiro reposted, and all these people started reposting. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to copyright this, and you can use it for non-commercial purposes, right, and reposting purposes. But I went on, the copyright office, and I took my little video and, just went on and filled out a $35 copyright and sent it into the copyright office, uploaded my video to the copyright office. And now, I'm sure people can repost it, but if I see it on, CNN or whatever, y'all got to come and get my permission for that. Other than that, it's copyright infringement.
Credit. They have to give you photo credit.
They need
or even compensate you. Yes.
For all of the effort and the money and me getting up at sunrise. If y'all want to use it, fine, but just attribute it to me and pay. If you want to use it for commercial purposes, pay me for it. So it's a real easy. You can upload your copyright. Just go to copyright.gov and upload your, whatever it is, your music, your video. There are different forms, but they have these tutorials on there and how to do it. And $35, bam, it's in there.
That's amazing. I also went to Rio de Janeiro saw that beautiful statue. I would not have ever thought, if I caught something amazing on camera to get it copyrighted. I would have just
Yeah.
thought, hey, I should share this, post it on social media, and keep it moving. But
Yeah,
that was
what
brilliant
I
that you
didn't think
realized, wait a minute, I have something here.
yeah, and I didn't think so at the time, right? I was just uploading. Now, if I had thought about it, I would have watermarked it,
Mhm.
but I should have watermarked it, but I didn't think that this would go viral, but the city of Rio de Janeiro reposted, everybody starts reposting. I was like, wow, like I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just gonna be my own regular, social media feed.
Right,
But people, this is my umpteenth time being in Rio. So what did I didn't think nothing of it?
right.
I'm just thinking like, okay.
That's
And
amazing that
yeah,
you
but the fact
your
that,
right place at the right time, and then you
right.
epiphany, like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was like, hold up. And so I was like, uploaded it and, submitted it to the copyright office. And, I'm sure nothing will ever, come of it. But if they do, they got to get my permission. So
Right.
it's
Well, that's what Getty Images does. Oh,
absolutely.
I'm an activist, right? And so we've done tons of protests. We see
Yep.
our photos on Getty Images, like
Yep.
pictures of us that they have gone out and taken, and
That's
they're
it.
able to put it on their site,
That's
put the
it.
watermark on it, and use
Yep.
it however they see fit.
Yep. That's it.
You're empowering people to understand that there's value when you're
Yep.
going out capturing video, capturing these pictures that are just incredible,
I
and
would not
how they can protect themselves.
I would not have thought of it. I'm just thinking, it's all right. And I'm just explaining to everybody, what happened and blah, blah, blah. And so then I went back on and edited my post and basically said, hey, these images are subject to copyright. You can use it for non-commercial purposes, provided you give me attribution. But if you want to use it for commercial purposes, you need my permission, you know. But I guess, people don't get to go up close and personal and spend 2 hours with Jesus, you
Right.
know?
It's like you said, it's a lot of tours. You
Yeah.
have to trek to get there. That's labor and trying to get
Girl,
up
and
there.
getting up at 4 in the
Yes.
morning, and just being at the right place, the right time, it's not something, it's not something that people are able to do, and I was blessed to be able to spend that time and do that. But that also came about because my friend is a copyright he's hardcore, intellectual property lawyer where he does litigation and stuff, and so he does copyright and trademark work for the Archdiocese of Rio, which owns the copyright of the design of Christ the Redeemer statue.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Right.
But it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out what you do like and what you don't like. And when you took the path of what you do like, all
Yeah.
these other doors that have opened up, the places you've been, the people that you've met, the opportunities that
Yeah.
you have received because you took a leap of faith, learned what you needed to learn, and got on the path to your destiny and purpose.
Amen to that.
That's amazing. And then seeing you being right there
Yeah.
at a critical moment. I'm sure that there are major
Yeah.
photographers internationally who wish they had captured what you captured.
Yep. I was
Well,
like, don't try it because I'm
camera.
coming for you. If I see it, I'm coming for you. Pay me.
Absolutely.
I'm like getting images at this point. Pay me for my time and effort.
That is
You know,
incredible. I love the whole story, and just even thinking about you being able to travel more freely, like you said in the beginning, right? That one trip where you could not go because of the litigation path, and now you can travel the world and work around your schedule, and like you said, live the life that you
yeah.
want.
Yeah, and I was working the whole trip. I'm out there taking calls and working and and it's funny how because I do travel a lot and people like, "Oh, you always on the road." I'm like, "How you think I finance this? I am working.
Right.
You think I'm just at the beach every day?
Right.
No." You know. So
Right.
it's funny. It's funny how people perceive my life, but I don't really care. It
Right.
doesn't.
You're doing you. You're
I,
doing you. And we need to
like,
see more Black women. Like
yeah,
you said, you're not the struggle girl. You like, listen, I want to live my best life. We
yeah.
deserve to be able to live our best lives.
Amen. That's
Box
it.
on based on somebody else's expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, as a licensed attorney, I'm sure that there are people who seek out your services. And we know I'm an attorney too. So we know that it can be expensive. What advice would you have for someone who wants to protect their intellectual property, something creative that they've come up with, but they can't afford an attorney? Are there two quick pieces of advice that you could give to people that are
One
expensive?
of the things that I think I've said before, like in terms of watermarking your whatever it is, whether it's your script that you send out to people, that's one thing. But another thing I would say was, educate yourself. That's why I wrote my book, because a lot of people don't know where to start, right? And so I wrote my book, The Legalities of Entrepreneurship, to really help the entrepreneur and break down these steps in terms of starting your business, when to trademark, when to copyright, because I do have a lot of these, a lot of people that ask me these same questions. And so I wrote my book in order to really, be a guide for people and really breaking it down in terms of bite-sized pieces. But I think an educated person and knowing where to start, and I really kind of codified that. So I think that, you should really figure out, where to best use your money, because people will always say, well, I don't have the money for a lawyer. But I'm like, but you got the money for a publicist, you've got the money for, marketing people. But if your business is not properly set up, right, and you haven't taken the necessary steps, then all this money you paying for your publicist and your marketer and getting your designs and your prototypes made, your house cannot be built on a foundation of mud. And so I tell people to allocate their money properly. You might not be able to afford, for example, my services, but you might be able to afford a person who is, 5 or 6 years out. And, they're different lawyers, they're different, so I tell people all the time, don't be afraid of approaching a lawyer and thinking that you don't have the money for it, because there's always a good lawyer that you can find that is willing and that is able to work in the area of expertise that you were thinking of. You going to a New York lawyer or you going to a California lawyer, we're charging higher prices than somebody who might be in North Carolina, for example. So just look around, but don't automatically have to think that you can't really afford a lawyer. You have to, it's about how you're allocating your money, and be
Right.
educated and figure out what you need that lawyer for. You just might need a consultation with a lawyer, you know, and you might not, whether you set aside, $500 to sit around, ask somebody, will you do a consultation with me? And, what's your consultation fee? And, it can take an hour and ask that person all the questions that you can ask them in that hour, but be prepared with your questions, know what you need to know when you go in there. So there's always a lawyer that can help you. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of digging through and sifting through the choices to find the
Right.
person that is right for you.
Well, and I think part of it is also about how hungry you are, right?
Correct.
If this is something you've poured your blood, sweat, and tears into, you've spent hours working on it,
Yeah.
you gotta do what you gotta do in
Yeah.
order to protect it.
Mhm.
So using some of those tactics that you mentioned,
Yeah.
right? The door is closed, you open a window, you figure
Yep.
out how to
Yeah.
get what you need.
Yeah. And that's important because at the end of the day, you do have a pool of money. It's just how you decide to use that pool of money, right?
Mm.
So don't come to me and telling me you don't have any money, but you got your prototypes and you got your business, you got your marketing plan all set out with these, fancy graphics, and then want me to, cut my prices,
Right,
and help you because you're a small business. Well, guess what? So am I.
right.
Everybody got to eat.
Right. I know that's right. Now tell us a little bit more about your book,
Uh,
Legalities of Entrepreneurship. What are some
yeah.
key takeaways and how can people access your book? I'm ready to go buy your book. Just
Yeah.
hearing your talk and learning from you.
Thank you. The Legalities of Entrepreneurship. It is available in bookstores, but probably the easiest place for you to find it is on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. And basically, I wrote my book for people, for the entrepreneurs, right? You don't need a brick and mortar store to be an entrepreneur. If you are designing something, if you're doing hair and makeup, and you are if you have side hustles and all that stuff, you're an entrepreneur. And, one thing is for sure and two is for certain, Uncle Sam is coming for his money. And especially in 2023, they gave us a break in 2022, but in 2023, they're coming for us because all that money that's in Zelle and, Venmo and PayPal and all that stuff that you were being paid, now they're going to start reporting that money as miscellaneous income to the IRS. And so really figuring out, how to start the business. And so it's called the legalities of entrepreneurship and kind of a play on words and of the legalities, but
You're
also
spilling it as well. Is there some tea that you're
yes,
spilling
I'm
in the
spilling the tea. That's why you see this little book right here, right here. Wait,
Yes.
right there. And it's back. So basically, in between the chapters, I have what's called tea time, where I kind of sit with the reader and I give you examples. Like I just gave you, the reason I gave you the story about, the Rio situation is really to put it in to take it out of the theoretical and put it into the practical, right? And so I give you best practices on how to build your business. I talk to you about, near misses that I've had and how I've been protected and saved myself from, getting caught up and mired down with the wrong people because I've had my business protected. So it's broken down into, it's for the layperson. It's not a treatise, right? It's not
Mhm.
very easy to read. It's conversational. So I talk to you about, hey, this is how you do it from a legal perspective. But then the tea time is me really sitting down and giving you bite-sized pieces and real practical advice, one-on-one time with the reader, and talking to you really not at you, with you and to you, so you can understand how these things work in a practical point. Because lawyering and the things that you're doing to set up your business, lawyering is expensive. It is oftentimes daunting because people don't know where to start. And it's really, really, like it's scary, right? Quite honestly. And so I really try and take these questions, the basic questions that you have about, what kind of business should I start? When should I trademark? What kind of entity can I have? Everybody's going for an LLC, but that might not be the best way, for you, because as an LLC is set up as an LLC, you cannot avail yourself of self-employment taxes, right? And you paying yourself a reasonable value of your services versus a salary. So if you're doing something full time, you might want to take advantage of a corporate structure, or maybe you have an LLC with an S corp election. So people are like, oh, well, what's that? So I give you the basics. And, people always come to me, well, will you set up my business? Well, I can, but I think you really probably need to start with your accountant. One of my dear friends was begging me for months to start her business. And I'm like, but I don't know your tax situation, right? I don't know the money that you have and what you are trying to do. Now, to go to an accountant and tell them, take your taxes and tell them where you're trying to go, and let's go from there. So those are the kind of advice that I give you, and I explain the differences. What's the difference between an LLC? What's the difference between a corporation? What is the difference of a trademark? And what is the difference of a copyright? What business insurance might you need, right? Things like that. So I really talk to the reader about all of that and really break it down into really figuring out, what does your dream team look like? I'm saying there's an attorney for everybody. You're going to at least need an attorney and you're going to need an accountant, right? What are the resources and funding? Where can you go to find what kind of loans are available for me? What kind, how can I crowdfund legally? What's the difference between these different crowdfunding sites? What are the SBA loans and how to avail yourself of that? All of those things are in there. Hiring independent contractors versus an employee. People have these people working full time for them on staff. They're paying them as independent contractors. Well, guess what? You fire them and they're going to go file for unemployment. But they were hired as an independent contractor. And then all the employment office says to you, well, were you working with them full time? Did you have the ability to do other things? Did they, so they started asking you all these questions, and well, dang, you were an employee. And guess what? Now you have to pay back employee taxes on that person. Then you get dinged, you have to pay penalties and interest. So it's really it's all of that, setting that up in talking to that person
Mhm.
as a layperson, giving you that advice and talking to you and talking with you and putting it into conversational dialogue with the reader.
That sounds fantastic. I know that people who read your book, they're gonna have their eyes open. They're
Mhm.
gonna feel much more confident and know some of the steps that they need to take. So not only am I going to order the book, but I'm definitely gonna recommend it to
Yeah.
everybody I know who is an entrepreneur. Because
Yeah.
the way that you just broke that down, that's not knowledge that you can get anywhere. So
Yeah, I
you
mean, you
so
don't
much
even know what
great
to
in that
ask,
book.
right? They you don't people don't know what you don't know, right? And so you might not you just like, "I'm just gonna hire somebody and 1099 them." Well, guess what? There are these states are broke, so they are trying to figure out ways to tax people because our all the money that the states run and how we repair our roads and our schools and things like that, that is money that we pay and taxes. And if you're not paying that money into the tax system, Uncle Sam and the IRS, they all want their money. And
Mhm.
so that money comes from employer employee taxes and our income taxes that we find. So they coming for theirs, and so they're, you remember you may remember when there was this big push, to have Uber and Lyft drivers declared as employees of the company because of, all this money was going out. And so there are certain carve outs and things like that. But people don't know I may have to hire somebody as an employee. They don't know that.
Right,
So, and there are the resources are out there on the internet, but you might not even know what to look for. So I put it
right.
all in, one place on what to look for and how, and best practices. So that's what it's about.
That sounds incredible. I can't wait to read your book.
I can't wait
Seriously.
for you to read it.
It is so on point. Just the things you're talking about. These
Yeah.
are things that I've come across either as an attorney or
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur myself
Mhm.
and trying to navigate that space,
Yeah.
and figuring out this is what I know and this is what I need to know. So
Right. Exactly. And
book
so those are the things that,
perfect.
I tried to really put it all together in one place for people as a resource book and make it fun and easy to read in the process.
Yes, I love that you said you spilled some tea in there. So it's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you shared that on the show for those who are listening today. And I'm hoping that they go out and get your book and tell other people about it as well.
Me
So we'll
too.
have a little movement within a movement to
I
have
hope
people get
so.
this.
I hope
Now,
so.
before I let you go, let us know if there are any projects or events that we need to be thinking about or looking out for that you're involved in. And also let people know how they can find you on social media. You said you're Lisa Bonner
Yep.
on
I
Instagram.
got off of Twitter because of Elon Musk. I recently
Yeah.
I got off of Twitter. I closed my Twitter account down. So I'm probably most active on LinkedIn and Instagram. Facebook, I got off that a while. I'm still on there, but really for my mother, you know. So she knows what I'm up to. But Instagram is where I'm probably most active and LinkedIn. And all of my profile is at Lisa Bonner. In terms of the things I'm involved in, speaking engagements, here and there. I have my own podcast as well. That's called the Legalities Podcast, and it is available on Spotify, Apple. It's spelled the same way, TEAS. And, I really talk to, small business people, and I do master classes. And I've, talked a lot about in this past season about, really kind of bringing my book to life. I come from a family of educators. So I'm really always trying to educate, people and give back, to the community. So that's another project of mine. And the podcast I'm excited about it. I've been doing it for years. And, every time I try and, back out, people are like, oh, I really enjoyed your podcast. I'm like, oh, for real? You actually listen, So here I am again for another season. So
That is wonderful.
but
People need to hear from incredible Black women who are out there just doing the darn thing, just letting the world know, listen, this is who I am. This is what I'm bringing to the table. And here's what I can share with you.
yeah. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
that is still rare in this society to
Yeah.
have women like you who are doing what you're doing and also thinking about how do I bring other people along?
Yeah, each one teach one. You got to leave the ladder down. And I think it's incumbent upon us. I mean, we've got enough problems and enough challenges as people of color, as women of color, that I think that we need to be resources for one another and build that generational wealth and build that generational knowledge and pass it down because, we are only as good as the collective. And, speaking about, justice and knowledge and things that your podcast talks about, that's how we've always learned. We have always learned by teaching other people,
Yeah.
whether it's from the Underground Railroad or teaching, other slaves how to read or whatever. But they know that the masses know that we are good at everything that we do. And
Yes.
that is why Ron DeSantis and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these so-called, majority are trying to push back and erase our history.
Right.
How are AK-47s legal, but books that you're banning books on Black history? I'm
I
sorry,
know that.
you
Say
know,
that again. Right.
how is it one is legal and one is not? Okay, so make that make sense. Like just imagine where we would be as people of color if we did not have systemic and systematic oppression pushing us back and pushing us down and burning our towns and cities and businesses down at every given turn. Imagine where we would be as a people if we did not have the majority pushing back on us. And they know that the gig is up, right? The jig is up. And so now they're doing everything they can to try and marginalize us. But that was what I'm saying. Knowledge is power. And that is why I wrote this book. That is why I do my podcast, because knowledge is power. And we have to keep that power amongst us in order to progress and make these strides. Because we ain't going nowhere, baby. We are here to stay. And
That's
that
right.
they're scared of us. And you know what? You ought to be scared because we know what our power is. And now we are not erasing, they ain't erasing us. And so
That's right.
we are
They
here.
can't erase us. A country that we help build.
They are trying. They are
Influenced by our people in every direction.
we are not having,
Not
and the more you
erased.
push us
We're
back,
not going anywhere.
the more we're gonna come to fight, and whether it's us, sharing our knowledge from books, or I even put my book on sale on Amazon, because I wanted people to be able to, after Christmas, it had been out a while, and I was, let's share it because I didn't write it to make, money. I wrote it to empower people. So, it's important that we share that knowledge because that's how we have risen to power and gotten to where we are as a people, and we ain't going nowhere. We only getting stronger from here.
Absolutely. You speak in my language. I'm
Yes.
so happy that you took the time to join us on Justice and Power podcast. You dropped so many gems,
Thank you.
nuggets, diamonds. Anybody who listen, if they take one thing that you said and apply it, their life is going to change. Their business is going to change. But I'm
Thank you.
hoping that they take it all
Thank you.
and they
And
go get your
congratulations.
book and
And
apply it.
congratulations again on your podcast. I'm happy to be on.
Thank you so much. I hope we can get you here in the Twin Cities, which is where I live,
Oh,
Minneapolis.
woo, girl, it's cold up there. Woo.
It is cold now, but in a couple
Across the
months,
land of 10,000 lakes, right?
it'll be warmer. So we got to make that happen. But thank you so
Sure.
much, Lisa. I
Thank you. I
appreciate you.
appreciate it.
You are amazing. I'm here. I'm cheering you on.
Thank you. Likewise, sister.